mahalo for attending tonight's salon this month in March. We are really happy to have Jay April, our CEO and president of Akaku, moderating tonight. He's very close friends with Dale Zarrella, a very renowned artist and sculptor and painter as well, who we have tonight. He's been here before, it's been some years, and we're really happy to see what initiative he's going to be talking about tonight in partnership with Treecovery Hawaii. And Duane Sparkman, who is the founder of and president of Treecovery Hawaii, is here to talk about his work in replanting lahaina and kula. And a board member of his, Roger May, is joining us as well in that discussion. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over. We will be having a Q&A, and I will need to pass this mic to you. So when it comes to Q&A, please raise your hand, wait for the mic to come to you, and then ask your question. Thank you so much. Enjoy.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you very much. Aloha, everybody. Aloha. Thank you so much for coming. Roger and I were talking before the event opened about how important it is to have you all here. We were talking about Facebook and social media. You know, the algorithms in social media right now don't connect us anymore. They divide us. They want to make money. So they want you to spend money. So instead of connecting us, the algorithms, which aren't even human, right? They're created by humans. They divide us. So coming together every third Thursday blows my skirt up. It really does. And you know, we're going to be talking about trees tonight. And trees, they don't need social media. They have roots, right? They have mycelium like mushrooms. That's their network. That has to be our network, not algorithms. So I just wanted to mention that in the beginning. I am so excited tonight to have these gentlemen with us. I've known Dale Zarrella for 25 years. I was making a turtle documentary. I think we met on the Big Island, Dale, I think. And Dale was like cleaning turtles. He wasn't fashioning turtles or sculpting them. He was actually helping them to survive in the wild. I was making a film called Red Turtle Rising about the Hawaiian, not the green sea turtle, the hawksbill turtle. And Dale and I connected. We've been friends ever since. I have never been blown away by anyone's talent as much as I've been blown away by Dale Zarrella's. We're going to show a little film in a second that will sort of, it's kind of a bit of an overview of his career. It's not really chronological. I've hung out with Dale so much over the past 25 years, I just put a bunch of footage together and finished it at 4:30 this morning. So if I fall asleep in the middle of talking, like if I go into a narcoleptic fit, you'll know why. So maybe we should show the film and then come back and talk to our distinguished panel. These guys are bringing back the trees in Lahaina. All right? And Dale has a special relationship with trees. Did anyone ever meet William Irwin, W.S. Irwin, the poet, famous Pulitzer Prize, Nobel Prize winning poet, the poet laureate of America? He had a place in haiku, place in Paris. An amazing poet. He was actually the kid who hung around Robert Frost and T.S. Eliot and those guys. Well, one time he wrote a poem called On the Last Day of the World, I Would Want to Plant a Tree. And I said to him, I said, Bill, why on the last day of the world would you want to plant a tree? Why wouldn't you just say, I would plant a tree? He goes, because I always want to plant trees. I want to plant one right now instead of standing here at this dinner talking to you. So talking about trees and how important trees are, this is a man. He looks at a tree and he already knows how to give it second life. But I'll stop my yammering. Roll the clip, Adam. Here, beauty and mystery reside. Delight your eye, touch your heart, and stir your soul. You are in for a real treat. We're going to hang out with world-renowned sculptor and artist Dale Zarrella at work in his studio hale.
These are a couple of stones that I found up in the pasture here. This is going to be a giant eel, the hawk. This is about a 5,000 pound stone, and it was right next to that 8,000 pound stone in the pasture. That's beautiful.
Somewhere out there in the Wailuku wilderness, there is Maui's Michelangelo, sculpting in wood and stone, like this exquisite mermaid and child emerging from the koa.
Little baby turtle hanging off the top of the shell here.
Or goddesses made from translucent orange honeycomb calcite, a rare stone from a quarry in Utah, purported to have healing powers. You got a name for this one, Dale?
She is the goddess of light.
Goddess of light.
And enlightenment. She's just so...
Oh, man.
Here, let me put this up to the light. Look at that.
Oh, my God. It's alive. The calcite has a translucent quality. It's almost magical. And, of course, when Dale gets a hold of it, it's just amazing the beauty he can produce.
It's going to be the next goddess.
Oh, that's her, huh? Waiting in the rock. That's how Dale thinks of it. He can see the finished goddess in the stone before he begins to work on it.
Italian stone from Italy.
This is statuary marble from Italy, the kind of stone that they made all the statues of Greece and Rome with. And then there's the wood. And Dale has a gift. He can actually see the finished work in the tree before he gives it second life.
And then Lehua will be up there longing for Ohia. Wow. So it will tell the story of Ohia and Lehua. And that big giant one lying down there, that's going to be a life-size statue of Pi'ilani.
Pi'ilani, wow. I can see him lying in there.
Yeah. There's Milo, there's Koa, there's Ko, Curly Koa.
Kamani.
It's an indigenous Hawaiian wood.
Wow.
Pretty darn rare.
It's almost like Zarrella has this wizardry of capturing the souls of trees, like this face on Iliahi or sandalwood. Dale has a way with wood, all right, like this mermaid, mother of turtles. Or this exquisite curly koa sculpture of Father Damien of Molokai. No matter the medium, wood or stone or lava rock, marble or bronze, like this statue of the Hawaiian demigod Maui. His religious statues of saints, Father Damien and Mother Marianne Cope, have been collected by the Vatican. Quite an honor from Maui's Michelangelo.
This particular piece tells a beautiful Hawaiian legend about a little girl they called Kawila. About 25 years ago, I did a bronze monument at Punalu'u State Park dedicated to her legend. She was a little girl that kept watch over the children that enter the water. If any got in trouble in the water, she could transform into a turtle and save them. If there are no children to save, sometimes she would transform into a turtle and play with the children. This is her playing with the child. But it's not just any child. It was my daughter when she was little. She just turned 37 about a week and a half ago. My granddaughter was in my studio in 2014, right after I got the commission to do the bronze sculpture for Pope Francis of Saint Marianne Cope. And I said to my granddaughter, I said, "Ooh, this is your mother." And she said, "Not." And I said, "Yes, it is." And then she looked up at it and then looked up at me and said, "Well, Papa, when are you going to do a sculpture of me?" I chose to depict Saint Marianne Cope of Molokai with a little orphan girl next to her. And when Pope Francis did the blessing of the sculpture, he did a blessing, then he stepped forward, put his hand on the child, did another blessing, and his photographer got this picture. And this is my granddaughter, and she was also my model for the life-size sculpture of Mother Marianne I did for the museum in Honolulu.
A bronze cast of this statue of Saint Marianne Cope of Molokai was dedicated to the nurses and faculty at the University of Hawaii Maui College School of Nursing. Cope worked with Father Damien on Molokai to treat the victims of Hansen's disease there, and you might even call her the patron saint of Maui nurses, since she was the first nurse at Maui's first hospital. Dennis and Michelle Clyde funded the sculpture.
So this particular piece right here was my initial study in clay of Saint Damien of Molokai. In 2010, I was commissioned to do a life-size koa wood sculpture of Damien for a museum in Honolulu. And that led into the 2 bronze sculptures commissioned by Pope Benedict for the Vatican in Rome, one for the Vatican collection, one for the seminary school at the Vatican. Since then, I've done 16 Damien bronzes for different churches, cathedrals. Cardinal Dolan has one in New York, St. Patrick's, and other seminary schools and private collections. The piece directly in front of me here depicts the legend of Maui, the demigod. So this depicts Maui right after he captured the sun, and he's shielding his eyes from the sun with his net blowing in the wind. You're going to see some very rare woods, many of which I collected with a helicopter pilot that had a degree in forestry from Penn State. And you will see some of those rare woods as you go through the gallery. As you look towards your left when you walk in the gallery, you will see a replica of the last piece commissioned for Pope Francis of the Resurrection in bronze.
Famous for his sculptures of gods and goddesses, Zarrella is a master of mermaids as well.
The Fairmont Kea Lani in Wailea is the new home for a new sculpture by Maui's Michelangelo Dale Zarrella. And here's the unveiling of an 11-year labor of love. The outstanding artistry and creative detail in the piece is phenomenal. Turtles swimming about, an octopus with OPE for eyes, even a pufferfish hides among the coral.
This was a great-great-great-grandfather of a monkey pod tree. Monkey pod is not indigenous to Hawaii, but it was brought in the early 1800s by the sugar mills to provide shade for workers going in the fields. But as I got into this piece, I came across so many large spikes driven into it, wounds that healed over, even a big burn mark right in there that healed. When you get into a great-great-great-grandfather like this, you start to see what the tree has been through, just like in humans. This tree was through so much over probably 150 years. Its standing life did come to an end when the coal pile at the sugar mill caught fire and ended its standing life, but its new life. This became the trunk of the tree. The next piece up in this tree became the life-size sculpture of Saint Marianne Pope of Molokai for a museum in Honolulu. The top of the tree I turned upside down, and it's roughed out right now, and it's almost 11 feet tall with the mermaid and merman in the most loving embrace. That will be our next unveiling in a few years.
So you give trees another life,
Yes. Yes.
everlasting life, so to speak.
Immortal. I think it was my grandmother is the one that taught me the love you put into anything is what creates the magic. Whether it is cooking, raising your kids, sculpting, no matter what it is you do in life, it is the love you put into it that makes all the difference.
Now, Dale Zarrella has teamed up with the tree recovery people in Lahaina to bring awareness and raise funds to regrow the thousands of trees that were lost in the wildfires.
This is a piece of kiawe from Lahaina that was burned. You can see the whole piece was burned. But she is just such a pretty,
Gorgeous.
I call this series From the Ashes, Spirits of Aloha. So there's some amakuas coming out. There's a lot of human spirits coming out, male and female.
Yeah.
And owls, eos, hawks.
And you're all working with this charred wood from the fire?
Yes. Because it's something you feel.
You definitely feel it.
And Dale is about to sculpt 102 of these, one for each victim of the fire.
Right now, it's estimated that 1/3 of the banyan tree is showing a very strong recovery with new growth high in the canopy. The team is working with a nonprofit to grow seedlings of native trees that will be given to residents in the burn zone.
While the recovery of Lahaina's famous banyan tree has gotten a lot of attention, there's thousands of other trees in West Maui that also need help.
Among them is an ulu tree believed to be at least 250 years old. KITV4's Rick Kwan has that story from Maui.
We've lost, we're estimating probably about 85 to 90% of the trees have passed away. So we've got to grow that many more trees and put them back. So 20 to 30,000 trees have to be put back in Lahaina town. It's a daunting task, but we've got a lot of folks on it right now working toward that goal.
Maui arborist Duane Sparkman is a member of a volunteer group called Treecovery. His mission? Save and plant as many trees as possible. An app helps him keep track of what needs to be done.
And then we go by, we check those trees and we let them know either they did survive or they didn't. We GPS them on another app that we're sharing with a watering company, and they go around and water the trees on the GPS app. So we're keeping the trees alive.
Hundreds of years ago, ulu or breadfruit trees covered Lahaina and were a staple food for native Hawaiians. In fact, the town was once called Malu Ulu o Lele, which means the shaded breadfruit grove of Lele. This ulu tree is named Puloa and is believed to be at least 250 years old. This is how it looked before the wildfire, and this is how it looks today.
And then once the fire happened, we were able to come in and peel the asphalt back and get water in on this tree. So we're watering it, and we're hoping we will see some root sprouts come up of ulu. And if it does, we're going to water those ulu sprouts, and if this tree comes down, it's okay. Its baby's going to be the next generation, and we'll keep that one alive.
Sparkman became excited when he saw how another ulu tree has begun growing sprouts.
So we've had really good success. You can see this is already starting to show the ulu leaf. So yeah, we've got ulu coming up. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. We've got a lot of life in this tree right now. And that's really exciting because all of these can be collected, separated, and grown out as the next generation of this plant.
10,000 ulu plants from the Big Island have been delivered to Maui and will be planted once they go through quarantine. Restoring the town's greenery to what it once was will take decades, but the recovery has begun one sprout at a time. Rick Kwan, KITV4 Island News.
After the devastating fires, we created Treecovery because we knew there would be a void in the trees that were going to be for people as they rebuild their homes. We understand that it's very expensive to rebuild, and we wanted to be there to have these trees available for no cost for these families. The process is we come to a hotel and we bring soil, we bring pots, we get everybody together, and we grow these trees for the future of Lahaina and Kula.
Sustainability has long been a tenet of all of us here at the Fairmont Kea Lani. We have 22 acres here, and we have an opportunity to be able to contribute in a meaningful way. Our partnership with Treecovery extends beyond that. It includes our artist in residence, Dale Zarrella, and his artwork that has been long since presented at the Kea Lani.
It's such an honor to transform these burned trees from Lahaina into living works of art. And the sale of the sculptures is helping fund Treecovery in their efforts to grow trees for the people of Lahaina and Kula as they rebuild.
This is an opportunity where we can take a moment in time and turn it into a special memory. And this is what Treecovery Partnership, Dale Zarrella's partnership, and the Fairmont Kea Lani coming together beautifully.
I see this beautiful face of a goddess in here. This one is very magical. This piece came from Lahaina, from the fire. They're still so alive inside. It really is a second life. From 2 days after the fire, I started having visions of these works, and it has been non-stop ever since. Transforming them, bringing out their beauty that's inside. And then having half of the money going directly to growing trees for generations to come. it's such a great way to make something good out of that awful tragedy.
I got to let these guys talk now. You heard enough from me. Roger, let's start with you. Roger's a mysterious figure in the room. I know Dale for 25 years. I've seen Duane a bunch of times. You know, he's an arborist, right?
Yeah.
He said he was an arborist-ish, which is even better than an arborist. But Roger, he's on the board, so he's I don't know what board members do. Roger, tell us what's going on. He's doing some good stuff in Lahaina, though, in Kaanapali. He's doing some amazing stuff. Tell us about it, Roger.
Well, first of all, it is just an amazing honor and a pleasure to be a part of this group, and Dale and Duane and the community. And the fire was a horrible, horrible thing, but I've seen so much good, so much aloha. It's amazing what this community's done and the resiliency of this community. Very proud of Dale, very proud. I mean, these guys came out of nowhere to help. They asked for nothing in return. And so the marriage between arborist who wanted to take and save Lahaina, give back the trees it lost, couldn't do it without funds. Fast forward, Dale. He takes these same trees that got burnt, creates them into that magic, and the funds are coming. So the trees paid for their babies. It's just a phenomenal circle. So when we first all got together, and all these guys with their own harebrained ideas put all the ideas together, magic happened. And you know, it all started, you know, the beginning with a simple introduction to Dale, and we had a property in Kaanapali right next to the Fairway Shops, and we got about 4 acres there, and we were supposed to demolish the buildings in that 4 acres and put in a resort. And that was supposed to happen literally the month after the fire. And somebody sat around, and we were down there planning on where we were going to tear these buildings up, and somebody mentioned that Sacred Heart's burned and kids don't have a place to go to school. And they look at the buildings and they look at me, and you know, the buildings, they should be torn down. They weren't that nice of buildings, and a nice resort really sounded nice. Again, people put their heads together, and now Sacred Hearts has 200 kids with beautiful buildings on a brand new campus overlooking the ocean on the 16th fairway. And then we got the other half of the property where the Alano Club got burnt down. And those guys were up there volunteering, helping us get ready for the school. Well, what are you going to do with this last building? Well, we're going to tear it down and at least start our project. And well, we don't have a place. So now we'll be opening up the Lahaina Resiliency Center and the Alano Club in the next 60 days, all right next door to the Fairway Shop, and that will be doing counseling and healing and a place for the Alano Club. So between all of them, you got 200 kids on the south side of the property. You'll have a couple hundred people a week, a couple hundred people a week on, it's a couple hundred people a day will be going through the Resiliency Center on the other side of the property. So again, and it couldn't have been done without the amazing spirit and people of Sacred Hearts and that ohana. The amazing people from the Alana Club coming in, asking for nothing but donating their time for anybody and everybody, anything they need. We have, something going on this Sunday, finally cleaning up the last of the property so they can have a grand opening. And I think we got 100 volunteers. None of them want anything other than be a part of this project. And it all started with the introductions, very shortly after the fire with great minds like these two who put it all together. And now this bow is around this whole thing. Sacred Hearts is tied to the Resiliency Center, which is tied to Treecovery, which is tied to Dale, and I'm just couldn't be more proud to be a part of this whole thing. And at that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dale. Okay.
Dale, you have the conch.
Well, I'll start at the beginning as far as that fire. I was having dinner at the Fairmont Hotel, and I saw that black smoke going off towards Lanai, and I knew something drastically was wrong. By the time I got home in Wailuku Heights, I had a text message that Lahaina was gone. And but then next morning, I started seeing some aerial shots coming out and the devastation. And I saw the Lanakilo Church survived in the center of Lahaina. And so that first night after that fire, I had the first vision of one of the giant monkey pod trees and transforming it into a life-size sculpture of the resurrection, the last piece for Pope Francis. Because I had read a book on World War II about 6 months before that fire, and there was a whole chapter about Paris and the devastation. When they were finally, the Nazis were driven out of Paris, all the artists started to create, from the fashion designers to the painters, sculptors, musicians, writers, poets, and they started to create. And I believe that's why, creativity, and there's so many forms of creativity, that's one of God's greatest gifts. And they had a big show in Paris at a museum, and so many of the people of Paris attended that show because it gave them hope. And I'm creating art and literature and music. We have Steve Grimes that's working with us making guitars and ukuleles from some of those trees, and he even wrote a beautiful song about Lahaina. And I know that there are a lot of writers writing songs and literature, and that does add hope. I watch people now. I started creating about 4 months after the fire. I was talking to a friend of mine, Kimo Keo, and I told him about these visions I was having of carving the burned trees. And he says, oh, I know the arborist, Duane. I'll introduce you to. So he put us together. We got on the phone. We made a time. I met Duane in Lahaina. And when we met, we were like, hey, I know you. And he was like, yeah, we've known each other for 30-something years. But that's how Maui is, And so I found that tree of that first vision of the resurrection. Goodfellow Brothers has been kind enough to haul these big pieces around and brought them to me. The first vision was the resurrection, but then there was another vision a few days later there was a piece I did in front of the Frank Lloyd Wright building, the King Kamehameha Golf Clubhouse, and it's a warrior blowing the conch shell. And so a few days later, another vision. I had a hard time even getting to sleep that night because of this vision. I wanted to go there and just carve it right where it stood. But that's the gift of the artist, no matter what medium it is. You get so excited to create, and it's such a wonderful, positive thing that gives hope. So to get together with Treecovery, and then meeting Roger and Lisa May, and everybody that's been involved with Treecovery. All of them have a common thread that goes right through every one of their hearts. And to see what they're doing, because I'm not one to be part of a group. But this group is so worth being a part of, and growing those trees. I listened to a wonderful thing on Instagram. It was a psychologist talking to a man about life, and I heard that quote before, but she said, a wise man grows trees in which the shade he will never lay in. And that's being farsighted for generations to come. I started carving when I was 12 years old. I found my gift. And I've been doing it like a total maniac my whole life. I remember Matt Thayer, my third year here on Maui, did an article on my work, and he said, why were you so prolific from such a young age? And I realized, I had lost my dad when I was 6, and I figured he passed away when he was 30. I figured I had till 30 to live my life. And so being a sculptor since 12 and now growing trees for the generations to come feels so good. And I have not ever met a more passionate arborist and someone so into trees and has so much knowledge as Duane does. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Roger even commissioned a piece recently, a sculpture of Father Damien I'm working on from one of the Milo trees from Lahaina. And when it is finished, it's going to reside for a while at the Sacred Heart School that he rebuilt for the kids. But Damien was a Sacred Heart's priest, so to be doing that sculpture.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yes.
Neither did Sacred Hearts until just now.
Really? Wow.
Fun fact.
Surprise.
Yeah.
And that Damien piece, I mean, talk about second life.
Oh my
Into
gosh.
the state capitol, right? You see the statue of Damien outside the state capitol. It's this modern kind of, it's not engaging, there's nothing holy about it. You look at it and you go, I want to, I'm not going to do it, but in my imagination, I want to do a petition. Thousands of people will sign to replace that thing with Dale Zarrella's Damien. Conceptual art. Because his Damien, when I saw it, when he said he was working on Damien, I'm going, yeah, Damien's Damien. I'm thinking of the statue in front of the Capitol, but yeah, okay, great, Damien. When I saw it, I couldn't even talk. Being this young zealot, right, with the little girl, it's a girl.
Little child.
The child's a girl, though.
No, actually,
I think
in Mother Mary Ann you do. But in the child next to Father Damien, I did not want it noticeable as a boy or a girl. All you see is a hand and a foot. She's cloaked. The child is cloaked in a blanket that I feel Damien gave this child, because then it shows the shame they felt for having that awful disease.
And isn't he looking off to the left?
Yes, he's looking towards the left.
Which symbolizes what?
Well, I remember learning that David, Michelangelo's David, is looking towards his left at the giant he was facing, because the Catholic understanding is evil comes from the left. And the right side is protected by God. The Damien piece was so important and so special to me because I learned the story of Damien the day before I moved to Hawaii 40 years ago. I mentioned how I lost my dad when I was 6. When he passed away, his first cousin came from Belgium to perform his funeral, Father Alphonse Zarrella. Al was the vice rector of the oldest seminary school in the world in Louvain, Belgium in the late 60s and early 70s. That's where Damien came from. That's where he studied. And so the day before I moved to Hawaii, I called Al because he's been like a father figure to me my whole life. He was at a church in Connecticut, and I said, Al, I'm moving to Hawaii. And his eyes lit up. He said, you're going to hear about this man named Damien. And he told me the whole story of Damien. And then he said at the end, I honored his life of self-sacrifice so much that I would go to his tomb once a week down the street from the college and say my prayers and meditations. And I think that's why, to this day, I've done 23 bronzes of Damien and 4 large wood sculptures, and now working on, that's why it's so special to be working on a burned Milo tree and doing the sculpture of Damien for Roger and Lisa May. It's extra special. Yeah. Wow. So, and then, there's going to be a lifetime of work there from those trees in Lahaina. I'm 63, and I'm looking at all the inspiration that's come from it already, and I'm just hoping to live way past my 100-year mark. I had a grandmother who lived to 102 in 8 months. So you never know. You never know.
You kind of know somebody at the Vatican.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you and your colleagues talk about stuff, do you talk about trees?
Yeah, we talk about the trees.
Or do you talk about business and you talk about trees?
All kinds of things.
Yeah. So what kinds of secret tree languages do you guys talk?
Well, actually, the different types of trees
like
that were.
Sparkman, you know a lot about trees, right? Trees are your thing.
I know a lot about trees. I've spent a lot of time here on Maui.
Did you ever have a tree house?
I do have a tree house and a mango tree.
I figured.
It's a 110-year-old Piri mango. My son's right back there in the back, and he really enjoyed helping me hoist all the teak lumber up into that tree. Yeah.
He was 5.
How old are you? Maybe 13, 14? Something like that. But yeah, it was all teak. It was very, very heavy. Very, very heavy wood. But yeah, it worked out great. We still have nice evenings in that tree. Yeah, it's really nice.
I figured you had a tree.
It was really interesting in my life coming here. My first job, or actually the first place I got to go to was a Kihei Prime Rib and Seafood House, where this gentleman right here was the waiter. And at one point I worked there, and I worked on the salad bar while he waited tables, and I get to see some of his artwork and stuff. So that's where we met. And it was amazing to get the call, from Kimokeo to say, you got to take this guy, Dale Zarrella, in. And I'm sitting there like, the bell's ringing in my head, like I know that name. Like, it's been a while, but I know that name. And when I picked him up, I'm like, damn. And then all of a sudden it was like we started rattling off the people we knew and what we had done and how the circles were there, but it just hadn't touched in a while. And it was amazing to have that come back and the rekindling of that, and to see his passion for what he does and the passion that I have for what we're doing has just been...
That's almost too much passion in one room.
It kind of is, But when you find its passion for positivity, it's contagious. And we're trying to get people on that positive rope. You know what I mean? We really want them to walk that positive tightrope, because it's important to show the next generations that that's how we have to live. If we don't, then a lot of the negativity can come in and you cause problems. We want to stay on the positive side of this, especially going through what we went through.
And Roger, you mentioned it, resilience, right? That's the name of the thing, right? Resilience. And what has more resilience than a burned tree, right?
It lives forever.
Yeah.
It does now.
Yeah.
And that's the amazing thing with these projects, especially working with Steve Grimes, is now he's making instruments and they can make music from
with
that.
Trees.
Yeah, which is really incredible too. So, it's really, I think what's kind of our pinnacle of what we're doing now is, this is no joke, but on April Fool's Day, we will be blessing our grow hub inside the airport of Maui.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have trees inside of the airport terminal. And the whole point of that
That's right where the Maui statue is.
Where the big Maui statue is. We're trying to hide the akole from Marvin Moniz's office, because that's all he sees when he looks out the window is Maui's behind. So we're going to put some trees right there and hide that for him. So it's kind of a benefit for all of us, really. Happy Marvin, happy airport. But seriously, it's one of those things where we're doing call to action to have the tourists put their money where their mouth is. Right, and that's the thing, is we're really trying to push what we call voluntourism. We've talked about it for many years, and throughout a lot of our nonprofits. I work with Ikolu Lindsay, and Ed Lindsay was a big mentor of mine, and Puanani Lindsay's. We're very close, and those people guided us on the Hawaiian values, and to follow your heart through Hawaiian values. And when that happens, really good stuff happens. And they're not kidding. Like, we've done some really cool stuff. It's from the work we do in Honokauai Valley to rekindling Kipuko Olowalu, and then doing this whole project where we actually get to work with the community, all facets of the community. There's no border, no line that we're not going to cross. There's no negativity to this. We sit back and we try to think of our detriment. In our program, is there anything that's going to be bad? Right, and we see it. If we see it and we think that it's going to be bad, it's immediately pulled from the equation. This is a movement
give me an
of
example.
positivity.
Like, what do you mean? Give me an example.
Importing soils, importing lots of trees, importing stuff from other islands. We are an island that is right now void of certain invasive species like coconut rhinoceros beetle. It has been found here, but I'm telling you, I was devastated when I drove Farrington Highway last weekend. Thousands upon thousands of niu being eaten, and they're dying right in those yards.
From the beetle.
From the beetle. And there's no stopping it at this point. When you dig up a compost pile and find 1,400 larvae, you go, okay, that's a plague. They have a plague right now where Oahu is losing coconuts by the thousands, you guys. And the alarms are not going off that loud. Do you really hear it? I don't hear it. I don't hear it. But I'm here to announce that we're letting off the alarms, you guys. Like, if you see it, you got to say something immediately. That is a bad situation that those folks are in.
At this point, I have to do a shout out, a little off topic, but I have to do a shout out for MISC the Maui Invasive Species Committee.
Just saw them yesterday at my property.
Coqui frogs everywhere, Myconia everywhere, not on Maui. MISC is unbelievable. Maui's done the best job of keeping invasives out of here. And anyone that's still for the super ferry, may not understand that. If the super ferry was still running, the place would be just loaded with every kind of invasive you can think of. Thank God Maui's still Maui. And you're helping to make that continue to happen by paying attention, right?
Yes, we have to.
You just can't plant any tree, right?
No, and it's a matter of moving soils also. So we do not bring soils over. We actually are buying sanitized soils that you would buy for, say, a nursery, right? And so these come in bales, they're sanitized, they're actually inspected. We know that they're safe. We know that they don't have anything in them. They're basically sterile soils, and then we add microbial life and microbial food to that as a system to make those trees function.
Okay, now you're getting kind of boring. So do you tell Dale this stuff so when he's sculpting he can think about the microbial?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because
so
a
Dale,
lot of those lines you see, all those cool colors you see in the
Dale,
woods
do you
from
think
microbes.
about the microbial stuff when you're sculpting? What's going through your head?
I do leave that to Duane.
What's going through your head when you're actually doing the work?
Oh my gosh, you know, I'm not really thinking about carving.
You can.
I've gotten to, you know, I remember I had George Faust came to my home in 2011 when I finished the Damien sculpture. I was finishing the bronze Damien, and I had to go to San Francisco, and I went to see the Berlin Philharmonic. And it was playing on my birthday, November 22nd, 2011. And I was astonished, and I wished I could have talked to the musicians, but you couldn't get near the stage. Monday morning, that was Saturday night. Monday morning, I flew back, early flight, and I'm sculpting at Charlie Young Beach on one of my mermaids, and a guy comes by right before sunset, like 200 other people that day, and he starts talking to me, and I said, "Where are you from?" He had an accent. And he says, "I'm from Germany." And I thought I was so cool. I said, "I saw your Philharmonic play last Saturday night in San Francisco." His eyes lit up. He said, "I played." He was the first chair cellist. But you know, the reason I brought this up is because you say, "What are you thinking about when you're?" I'm not thinking about anything. The mind's just wandering. He came to dinner twice, and he said, "You know, Dale, your process and mine are the same." Our job has been to develop our skills to such a point, you developing your skills to take all that wood away, mine to play the instrument, that we've refined it to such an extent that we don't have to think about it. He said, "My greatest works, pieces of music, come when I'm just inspired to pick that instrument up and play. When I see that piece of wood and it speaks, I just grab those tools and I go, and I'm more surprised at what comes out than everybody else."
All right.
So I'm not really thinking about.
Okay, if I'm going for a walk with you and Duane, right, and you're here and Duane's here.
Don't go to the woods.
Be careful.
I was going to get to that, but that was privately later. I said, you'll get one later. But I'm going for a walk. Hey, look at that tree. What's the first thing you think, and what's the first thing you think?
Well, he's
you
identifying
see a sculpture, what do you see?
I just see what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a matter of identifying it and just recognizing what it is and in its state. I mean, for me, I look at things differently, and especially when you talk about forestry work, I've spent a lot of times belly crawling through stuff just to find invasive species, to remove them from crowding out the really important stuff that belongs, right? And in most cases, when you're down in these areas, you don't see natives, ever. And so when you do see a native, you're awestruck and you're stoked that it is the one thing that survived, and you feel this rush of wanting to go open up space around it to let it thrive better, you know, which gives him potential to use what we cut down as art.
Right.
You know, so it's kind of a good relationship. It's actually a kind of a really brilliant relationship that we've developed of we have all this stuff, and now it can create this beautiful artwork that now becomes healing for so many people in so many ways. He heals by making it. We heal by seeing it. And then people get to buy it, and that funding goes to a process that's healing the aina. Right? We're giving now back to those soil microbes, because that is the balance. We're all part of that continuous cycle we call aina. And we have to, as people, realize that. There's no separation of us from the soil. It's the same biota down there that's in our gut that helps us digest. So we can't neglect that like we do. You know, and we don't think about that. How many people eat yogurt? Right? Yeah, right. You do that because you have probiotics and you want that to serve. We never put probiotics back in the soil. We trample all over it, and then we ask, why is the tree sick? Well, you drove your car around it 50 times. You know, you park your cars on the root system that kills most of that mycelium that we are trying to create as a human connection here. Right? We want to be more like mycelium and share the knowledge, share the ike. That was Hawaiian. You share the ike, but it's got to be the right ike. It's got to be the right knowledge, right? And that's very important. We want to follow Hawaiian values. Those are critical for us because that's where we are in that sense. That gives us a sense of place.
Well, you know, it just strikes me that the place that you're coming from and the place that you're coming from are the same place.
Yeah.
Right? It's creativity. It's evolution. It's growth. And that's what the artist does. That's what the arborist does. It's the same thing. We're in the same boat, right? Why do we spend so much time dividing each other?
It's been forced upon us. It's something that is within the structure of the media that is given to us and we feed upon. If we don't look into that, it doesn't exist. It doesn't. And so those things, we can actually separate ourselves by just turning the damn thing off. Like literally, when you turn that source of knowledge or ignorance that you're being fed, turn it off. If you don't want it, you can walk away, but we have this thing of going, oh, we have free will and we can decide that I'm going to sit there and watch this.
I know what you could do. You could go out and you could plant a tree.
Thank you. There's a lot of volunteers that we need, and it's not just us. We are in the realm of wanting to help any other volunteer group too. We all feed from the same funding source, all of us nonprofits. Right? So we support all nonprofits. We want people to go help whatever nonprofit you get into, go. You don't have to help us necessarily. All these nonprofits need help.
Right.
Right? So if you have a way to help them in some sort of way, if you know trees, come help us. If you know people that need psychological help, go help some group that does that. That's my whole point, is that if that's in your wheelhouse and you have the passion for it, do it.
And maybe get off your akole and do something.
Thank you.
Huh?
That'll make the TV turn off faster.
I don't know how people feel about world events, but I remember, I'm a child of the 60s. We used to go out in the streets and demonstrate. Now people don't do that anymore. They go like this. Like, don't like. All right, I did my job. But, you know, to go out and do something. I mean, Dale, one of the things I want to ask you is, you know, since you guys collaborated and started down this road, you've done 18 of the charred, beautiful charred sculptures. What's the reaction from people?
Oh my gosh.
Tell me the reaction.
Every day I have people come in. A lot of them are visitors, but some are residents. And even the visitors, when I tell them where those pieces came from, it brings tears to their eyes. And they are tears of joy and of hope. And especially the local people that come through, because we have a lot of local people that come to the Maui Tropical Plantation also.
Right.
Yeah, right. And it is giving hope, and that feels so good to share it. I wasn't sharing the pieces. I was just I went in and I started sculpting them, but I put them away. I didn't know what I was going to do with them until the nonprofit was created, and then there was
so you started making these before you met Duane?
Well, no, I had met Duane, and I was able to start bringing pieces out, and I started sculpting them, and then the nonprofit was created. And then I knew why I was sculpting them. But I didn't put them on social media. I didn't put them out there because there was something, you know, there was still such sadness. I mean, there still is such sadness. People have gone through so much. And they even speak a little bit about the fires in California and then contacted you.
So it was really interesting. We had just kind of started Treecovery. It was maybe about 2 months into the idea and concept, and I got a call from people from the Dixie fires that the fire happened in 2021, and they had mentioned to us that they had not received any trees. What they did receive was pine, which is basically more fire fuel, and they were wanting us to ship them trees, which I was kind of taken aback because I know, you know, our climates don't really mix with mountainous areas of California. and I'm sitting there going, okay, California's kind of like that's kind of like an agricultural mecca. Like, you guys should have trees everywhere. Like, you should be able to get that pretty easy. But that was kind of a light bulb that went off in my head of, wow, okay, so the government is not going to help you get food trees or culturally significant trees back in your yard. They're not going to help you with that at all. They're going to provide you with natives. They're going to use less water, and it will create basically what it was, but not really. I mean, because if you have been through Lahaina, and most people know this, if you're on a bicycle with slippers, you will get mango sauce all over your legs, and you'll step down and probably slide around your slippers because there's so much mango juice in certain areas like Prison Street and Luakini, right? Because it was a giant fruit forest. Like really, there was lychee, ulu, there were so many different fruits down there. And then you had all the plumerias, puakinikinis, and all these cool trees that people would make leis with, right? All the culturally significant trees. Those had to be brought back. And that's where it was like, okay, we need to begin that process. And it became, okay, I know a lot of the industry. I'm the arborist chairman for Maui County. So we oversee all the really important culturally significant trees, all the ones that are historically special, that were planted by, say, D.T. Fleming, or very important agronomists, or they're historical, like some of the ulus that we knew were over 250 to 300 years old. Those trees were overseen by our group, and we had to make sure that there were a certain level of arborists that would touch those trees and maintain those trees. So that's how I got involved with the banyan tree. The banyan tree is a global icon. We pull a lot of funding from the mainland and around the world because of that tree.
And how's it doing, by the way?
It's doing beautifully. Like, we were out there the other day filming some stuff, and we still have some work to do. The area is not opened up, and it won't be for quite a while because there's a lot of cultural spaces that need to be redeveloped in that area, and the tree itself is still healing. It's only a year and a half from its burn. Only a couple sections actually caught fire, amazingly. The rest of it was just dried out by ambient heat. It was a very hot fire. What was incredible, though, was that tree saved a woman's life. And when you see that happen in a fire that vicious...
But how did the tree save a woman's life?
Space for embers not to catch fire, right? And so what that basically means is that you have these big giant buildings blowing across all their embers into this empty park. And the empty park has gravel, basically, as a ground cover. And as these embers land on it, there's no ignition source. There's nothing else for it to catch fire on, right?
Yeah.
And as they land, the rock actually cools them off. And you get less and less and less embers as they travel in that direction.
So we should put gravel everywhere. Everywhere in Maui should
It's a
have gravel.
very good thing to put around your home as a way to... If you get immediately evacuated, you can run around your house very fast and see if there's any ignition points at the base of your home. So that's why we always recommend putting a large gravel maintenance strip around your property. Do not grow trees right up against your home, and do not, and this is the big one, don't be lazy, okay? Don't pile your green waste in your own property. Get it out, turn it into mulch, use it back into your yard, let it become regenerative so it becomes a food source, and it breaks down and doesn't become fire fuel. Okay, we saw a lot of that happen in Lahaina, where folks had piles of green waste by their home, and then once an ember got into it and the blowtorch turned on at 115 miles an hour, there's nothing you could do. It's gonna burn the whole neighborhood down. Okay, so it's very important to look within, right? And then you go bake a bunch of banana bread, and I've said this before, go to your neighbor, give them banana bread, and then ask them if they will clean up their yard, and you'll offer to help, definitely offer to help. That way they don't burn your home down, okay? But you want to do the right thing.
But what if they want to do that on purpose anyway, because they don't like you?
Well, then that's you call the police and get a restraining order if you can. But no, seriously.
Then what they need is a beautiful piece of art to calm their soul. Yeah? I mean, look at those. I mean, I don't know if people had a chance to look at those. Tell me about that owl, because the thing looks like it has feathers on it that you didn't make. And look at that wing. How do you do this? How do you look at a piece of wood and go, okay, I know what that's going to be?
Well, you know, Michelangelo put the process simply and perfectly when he said, I saw the angel in the stone I carved until I set her free. It is as simple as that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Simple as that. I'm going to be a sculptor by Tuesday.
That's the gift. Then the hard part is developing your skills to take all the wood away. Yes, of course.
How about slivers? You don't have any slivers?
No, I've had my fair share.
Yeah, but the giant rocks haven't crushed your legs or anything?
I've taken good care of my hands. I remember, because I started when I was 12 years old, and And I've been doing it faithfully ever since, but I used to see woodworkers' hands that were all chapped and cracked and missing fingers, and I just did not,
He doesn't woodwork anymore.
Tell me to stop picking my nose. I'm not.
Stop picking my nose.
Sorry, Dale.
I say it's as simple as that only because I know musicians
But you still
that have not studied.
But you still have to do it, Dale.
Yes.
It's not as simple as that. You look at it.
It is an arduous task, and that's why it is becoming more and more difficult. I do have every year I do get a call, and I have a young man from Seabury I'm working with right now. He's working on his project. There he is right there.
Oh, nice.
And he's doing a fantastic job.
Oh, good.
And but you know, it's
working with the best.
It's so different for kids these days because they grew up with their computers and their phones and their different things, and they are used to things right away. You know, people every day say to me, "Wow, you have so much patience to do what you do," and I tell them, if there's one thing it takes to do these sculptures, it is diligence. You know, there's a mermaid that you had it in the video that I unveiled at the Fairmont on the 4th of July last year, and I looked last spring, I'm wondering why it's still in my studio, this mermaid. And then I looked at the date of the first picture when I started, it was 11 years.
Wow.
And I realized though, it was a love affair I did not want to come to an end. And that's why I was not finishing it.
She is really pretty.
Yes.
So if it was in medieval times, you'd be working on some cathedral, like Chartres or someplace like that.
Well, it was fascinating.
Still working on cathedrals for 1,000 years.
Well, it was fascinating to see the Notre Dame be rebuilt after the devastation there. That's spectacular, and all the artisans, you know, it can be done in this day and age. It doesn't make monetary sense to make a cathedral like that anymore, but to resurrect that was...
No, you're so prolific, Dale. But, you know, I very rarely have ever seen you stressed, which blows my mind. Because don't you have guys like Roger saying, when's my statue going to be ready?
No, actually, they're very, my collectors are usually pretty darn patient. But I have had some collectors put time restraints on me. When I did the works for the King Kamehameha Golf Club, I was given 5.5 months to do all 5 sculptures. 3 4-foot sculptures out of Koa of the High Chief of Maui, the Chief of Maui, and then the female counterpart to the High Chief, and then 2 life-size bronzes. And I learned in that project that I work fine under pressure. I'll get that job done.
So you do like the Romans do, like do one sculpture but put different heads on it? Did you do that? No?
Well, and then I remember when I finished that project, I had August Bush III commissioned a piece for his new home in his foyer.
Oh, the Budweiser guy.
The Budweiser guy, yeah. I had done works for him through the years, and I was working on one of the mermaids in front of the Grand Wailea, and I felt someone came up behind me. And I looked, and I said, "Hi, Mr. Bush," and he said, "What's the number on the mermaid?" That's the worst thing you can ask me right away.
What's the number on the mermaid? Wow.
And so I said, "She's priceless."
Good.
And he says, "Come on, everything's got a number." I said, "She's priceless." And he said, "I'm going to be back tomorrow. I want a number." And sure enough, here he comes the next day. "What's the number?" I said, "Same as yesterday." I said, "What do you want to do with her?" He says, "I'm building a new house outside St. Louis." I said, "A mermaid in St. Louis?" So I said, "Where do you want it for?" He said, "The foyer." I said, "How tall is the ceiling going to be?" He said, 22 feet. I said, "I'll guarantee you this mermaid's not right for your space." I'm not into selling some piece just for the sake of selling it.
But you could have had free beer for life.
Yeah.
You put it in the deal.
I ended up remembering this giant monkey pod tree that blew over past the sugar mill, and I remember picking my granddaughter up at preschool, and we went and checked it out, and sure enough I saw 2 eagles in a spiral together about 11 feet tall.
Wow.
And I took a picture of the piece of wood, made a quick drawing. The next day he comes with his wife and he said, "What do you got for me?" I showed him. And I said, "See, this is the male, that's the female. The female's a little bigger than the male in the wild." And she said, "See, honey, I told you we're dominant." And so they got into this little tiff, and I said, "They're going to be the same size." But anyway, it came down to the contract, and he said, wait a minute. He was ready to sign the contract. He said, "Wait, I want you to put, you got 5 months delivered. I said, what's with this 5 months? And so I thought about it, and I got all 5 of those pieces for the King Kamehameha done in 5.5 months.
Wow.
I said, no problem. I signed it. But then, you know, my brother worked in NASCAR for 35 years. I raced home. And I looked at the NASCAR schedule at the 4.5 month mark. My brother's team was racing in Kansas. So I called my buddy Carl Edwards and I told him, hey, if I get this thing done, can I go to the race? And you know, because he lives right near Mr. Bush. I got the thing done and I got to go to the race too.
Hey, all right. All right.
But that's how I started carving. You know, my brother and I had a father figure that was a race car driver, and I carved into a piece of wood his car for him, and he started showing all the other drivers, and my heroes at the track started buying them for $30 and $35. And then he taught my brother how to build race cars. My brother had like a 20-something year career with Dale Earnhardt, and then finished his career with Stewart Haas Racing, and I was just so proud of the career he had too. Yeah. But you know, people think it's a hick sport, but I learned a lot hanging out with those racers. You know, you learn about diligence, work ethic, pick yourself up if you crash this week.
How to fix a flat tire.
So got to race next week. There are a lot of life lessons in that. But yeah, that's how it all started.
Wow.
But then, you know, moving here, I worked at Intercontinental.
Yeah, but what got you here?
A dear friend of mine from
Always from
Bristol, Connecticut. His brother was a great architect, and I looked up to him, and he was like a mentor of mine. And he was hired by Campbell Estates in, I think it was 1982, to be the chief designer of a brand new city. That city is now called Kapolei. And so Christmas 1984, he was home in Connecticut visiting his family, and he convinced me to move here. 2 weeks later, I was here, and I never looked back. But then the series of events. You know, I worked at Intercontinental Hotel, and a man named Bill Boyd was my manager, and he was a historian, Hawaiian, and he would put all the elders in my section to wait on. Uncle Les Kololo'io, Mrs. Pukui, all the
kumus.
Yes, all the kumus. Yeah. Mr. Maxwell. And so they taught me the proper way about Hawaii and Hawaiiana. I remember I was standing in front of the sculpture of the healer at King Kamehameha at the big celebration of the grand opening of the building after the renovation. And Mrs. Kavena Pukui was next to me.
Wow, she's a
and
giant.
She said, "Isn't this beautiful?" And I said, "Thank you." And she looked at me, she said, "Son, you did this? You're not Hawaiian?" And then she looked at it, and then she looked at me, put her arm around me and said, "Son, you're a Hawaiian in another life." And that was the most wonderful.
He Hawaiian, he just stuck in a haole body.
Yeah. And to have mentors like Herb Kane. You know, Herb Kane was one of my greatest mentors. And I've stayed at his house when I would do shows at the Manalani through the years. And he was a wonderful mentor. And you know, he taught me to trust my visions. Mm-hmm. And anybody criticizes you about them, tell them to take it up with our maker, because our visions come from somewhere else. And it's not always for me to understand. Sometimes it's going to be understood by others. And usually those people come along that help me understand what that vision was.
So Dale, what advice do you have for people who don't consider themselves artists?
We are all born
artists. I think everybody is an artist on some level. Maybe they covered it up. Yeah. Maybe they didn't pay attention to the visions.
Or it was somehow beaten out of us just by life.
Yeah, by life.
But you know, we all are artists, and there's so many different forms of art. You know, from music and cooking, the culinary arts. You know,
well, this guy can cook Italian food like it's going out of style.
Well, not just Italian food.
I mean, if you opened a restaurant, you'd be eating there every day, so you wouldn't have time to sculpt.
Well, I think my grandmother, you know, she was from Poland, and she taught me how to cook because I think in her wisdom, she made sure I would never be a starving artist. You can always.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah,
make some. But you know, she was the most wise, saintly woman I ever knew. Because when I had lost my dad, she used to tell me, you know, God's going to give you something, Dale, because he took something so precious away. So when I discovered my gift, I took that to heart. One of the things that irks me most in this world is seeing someone with a gift that squanders it. We all are given gifts for a reason, and it's to use them. And another thing, it's to give. I remember reading a book by David Data, and he talked about the way of the superior man is giving your all to your family, to your community, to the world. And so that's always been my mantra. Of course, money is important, but it's not the most important thing in the world. It is giving and creating and giving your all. So your last dying day, you know you gave it all. There's no regrets.
You want to plant a tree?
Plant a tree. Yeah. Yeah. That's why the planting of these trees, and you know, it would be wonderful to see that ulu forest back again in Lahaina, and all those. I used to take breaks from Lahaina galleries when I would do shows on Friday night and walk those back streets looking at the trees. So of course my heart went out to the human victims of this fire and everybody affected there, but I started thinking about all those trees I used to look at. A helicopter pilot helped me gather wood for 16 years here, and he had a degree in forestry from Penn State. So I learned about the different trees. And then I became very good friends with Mr. Montgomery. He's the foremost entomologist in the islands, and we've gone camping together, and he's looking for bugs, and I'm looking for the trees. A lot of times his bugs are on my trees. And, but to see the passion of people and the different passions. I remember I was in the Makawao forest with he and another entomologist friend, and we were taking a break, having a banana and some water, and I'm killing mosquitoes left and right. I look over, and they're letting them land, and they're identifying the different species.
Something wrong with people like that.
I found out that day there's 5 species of mosquito in Hawaii.
5?
Yeah, 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're killing the forest birds too.
But yeah, that was the biggest, that's what decimated 80% of the birds way back, was the mosquito. I met a gentleman, called me because I had these ancient fish ponds. I took care of sea turtles in these ponds. You know, like if a turtle was got a flipper taken off by a shark or something, and they rescue him, they would bring him to me, and we'd bring him back to health. But I got a call one day from a guy named Chris Johns, and he just got done doing a 6-month photo shoot for National Geographic. And it was all about the birds of Hawaii. And he had to get a box and put birds in there and mosquitoes and get that picture of a mosquito biting a bird on its eyelid, because that's what they were susceptible on the eyelid. And then I got to know another National Geographic photographer, DeWitt Jones, actually going to Kalapapa with him at the end of the month. But I remember saying, we were playing golf one day, I said, hey, whatever happened to Chris Johns? He spent 3 days with me over at the turtle ponds, and he says, oh, he's editor-in-chief now. A woman has replaced him. He did his tenure, and but he went on to become editor-in-chief of National Geographic.
National Geographic.
It was fascinating to hear about the birds of Hawaii.
And you know, birds, they like trees too.
Yes, they do.
They like trees.
It's all connected. The bugs,
they make nests out of them and stuff.
the birds, the trees, the soil. If you ever want to read a good book, I just finished The Secret Life of Trees.
Secret Life of Trees?
Yes.
Oh, no kidding.
It's fascinating.
You couldn't leave it alone, could
There's
you?
so much under.
There's a lot we don't.
A lot we don't know. A lot we don't know about. Well, there is a lot we don't know about trees, huh?
That's right. I'd say 90% of the trees, like literally, you guys,
Most people think that trees are fed in a certain way, and they're not. It's amazing. Like, people go, oh, God, I'm going to go down to the store, I'm going to buy this fertilizer stuff, and that fertilizer stuff's going to feed the tree. That's not how it works, guys. Like, that is not how it works.
Trees are like picky eaters?
Actually, no. Trees are really unique in the sense that when you go into an intact forest, how many people have seen Johnny Appleseed out there fertilizing? But if you go to like a golf course, they do it every 3 months. Why?
Because golf course is fake.
Yes, thank you. It's because of us. And that's the problem, is we've destroyed all the microbial life, and now we use this stuff called fertilizer to just get it along a few months. Just go to, and then 3 months later we do it again, because let's push it down the road a little further. Yeah, but see, if you go up to the forest, there's these things intact, and it's called microbes. They're very, we don't see it.
It goes on that microbe thing again.
But you got to have those for that process to work. They actually feed them. That's fungus and that's bacteria. Those are things that we get scared of, but we want a balance of positive fungal and bacteria, and so that's what we do. I'm doing it at resorts right now, and we're actually going to be using bacteria to help slow down, if not stop, the possibility of grub worms, which are coconut rhinoceros beetles.
I heard a story on NPR the other day about they're finding that they think that trees communicate a lot more than previous theories, that they really have this incredible, like we mentioned it earlier, this incredible network that's real. It's not metaphorical.
There's the passion.
Yes, no joke. It's you have all the fungal strains. It's all your mycelium. It is the cellular network. We have proved it. We have proved it with just applying microbes to
Okay, so
soil.
here's a question for you, Mr. Tree Guy.
Yeah.
There's these redwood trees up in the Poli in the Poli State Park. And I've been in that grove, look, maybe 100, 150 trees. And they're kind of impervious to fire. There was a fire up there a bunch of years ago. Can those trees talk to the redwood trees in California?
No. And the reason why is because the cellular network does not survive salt water. Salt water, they don't talk. No, in all reality, mycelium, and this is how we prove this, I know a girl in Haikus that says that they do. Anybody ever played with irrigation and grass? And sometimes you have like a dry spot in the middle of the lawn, and you can't ever get that dry spot to, you're just fighting that all the time, it's always brown. With the introduction of microbial life, that dry spot goes away. It literally goes away because you have introduced fungal networks that share water now. Now that space that's dry is literally putting out signals, electric signals, to say, I need water.
Yeah, like on the golf course, the fertilizer is dead. Chemicals.
It's chemicals.
But the molecular stuff that you're talking about.
We're looking at how does it actually function.
Is alive.
Right? Yeah. And that's what we want to put back into place, is how these things actually function.
So that's the difference between eating at McDonald's and eating at Dale's house.
Yes, exactly. This is way better for your gut biota. And that's what we're talking. We don't want to kill that gut biota.
Especially the sausage with the marinara sauce.
Oh, the meatballs.
The meatballs.
Dude. Sorry, did you get a chance? Yeah, you had. Yeah, you did.
Would you like a sculpture or a meatball? I'll have the meatball. Give me the meatball. Wow, incredible. Does anyone have any questions for the gentleman? Because this is a good chance to ask them anything about Treecovery, about sculpting, about art. Question for Dale. Just take the microphone. Yeah.
When you're deciding to do artwork like this, do you decide what type of wood you're going to use?
It's speaking to me. I have all the wood, stone,
it just comes
everything.
to you and tells you how.
A piece has to speak in order for me to start sculpting.
So there's no.
But it's not. Sometimes it's just a feeling.
Okay.
Oh, I see. There's an owl. I know there's an owl in there.
Okay.
And then, sure enough, or a whale. Yes. I have a giant piece of wood that if I do see a whale, it's going to be.
I'm on the whale.
Oh yeah, he's making a whale for you?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you.
Duane, will you tell us more about the soil microbes? I'd like to hear more about that.
Fascinating.
So what's really important is to look at, the actual mechanisms that work within the soil strata, right? That's really critical, and we look at that because that's the way it was created. That's the way it's functioned for millennia without our input, and it will go on. Once we are all gone and dissolved and turned into our own material, it's going to turn us, and the microbes are going to break us down too, right? So what we've got to do is look at how does that actually help as a protective measure, and we did that looking at our reef. I mean, it actually came to us as a protective reef thing, because the reef is what protects our Aina from big wave events. It protects a lot of our land. There's a big value to that. And when the scientists came to us and said, well, we found that these certain things are actually degrading the reef and causing problems to the reef, and it looks like you guys could be part of the input, we started reevaluating what our inputs were. Right, and it took somebody like myself that was in a leadership position at a resort to make that change, to say, I'm going to stop doing these inputs because we know now that it actually has a detrimental effect to our ecosystem. So how do we stop that? Well, number one is put it down. My dad had a very good mantra, and he said, if you want to stop digging a hole, you put down the shovel.
And he's not wrong, okay? So put the shovel down, right? And we've been doing this for so long. It's been a normal practice to do this every 3 months, put down this fertilizer. It's chemical fertilizer. Yes, it looks good for 3 months, but guess what? The plants don't really take that up. They really don't. It's a chelated salt that is made with petroleum under pressure. And that is not what plants eat. They don't eat that. They don't, it doesn't even work. Like it, I mean, and we've been sold that because it is a monetized product that has been shoved into our kids at a university level in agricultural departments within universities. So now we are, you go to school and you get an agricultural degree and it's all based upon this particular way of doing stuff.
You know what's amazing?
And it's the wrong way.
What's amazing about that, Duane? Norman Borlaug, who invented synthetic fertilizers, he gave back his Pulitzer Prize because he saw what a lie it was. But yet it's still being taught and used.
You know why? And I'll tell you why.
Because it sells, it's made from oil, that's why.
To be honest, what we have is in Hawaii, we are the only United States state that has 365 days of growing. We're the only place that these big companies can use and have seasonal and can grow all year, right? And they grow experimental crops here, which means they want to get the highest possible yield. And when you base your stuff off these agronomy models, you know what your yield will be when you have sterilized soil with this much input, this much water, this much sunlight. My yield will be this. Good for you, but in turn, you actually destroyed the soil. You're creating more runoff, you're creating more dust, you're creating more issues with pollutions into our near ocean estuaries, and it's causing more problems for us in the long run, especially with cancers and things that we're exposed to with all this chemistry that now we have to apply to weeds because we've created a space for those things to thrive. Now, if we go back to what would normally happen in these spaces and we applied the proper type of actual microbial life, those weeds can't survive there. They just won't even survive.
Is that catching on as a matter of policy?
Yes, and I would say yes as a matter of policy because we were able to change the Maui County ordinances to no longer use synthetics in public parks or any county managed
But isn't there
properties.
some guy in the park department that wants to keep using it on the
Totally, and it's amazing because the information that they bring out and talk about is very distorted and improper, and it frustrates me because I really wish they would get into it, because if you get into it, it's amazing what this stuff can do for you. Korean natural farming. Who's heard of Korean natural farming? KNF, right? KNF is a really interesting way to create your own enhancement for flavor, your own biological fertilizers and stuff by stuff out of your own kitchen, which means you don't have to go to the store and buy this stuff. You can make it in
that's
your
good, because
yard.
I thought it was KFC. It's KNF.
Korean natural farming. And it can be done to scale where you can actually give this to the people. It can be made on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis and be divvied out to the public. So we're working on that right now.
Aren't you glad you came? I mean, you guys are so smart. I mean, I could listen to Duane all day, I swear. Duane, let's do a show. Why don't you come down and do a show?
No, we will. I mean,
a regular or a podcast, something.
Well, we will with Hawaii Seed. We will make this a big thing because we just did 3 days in Kauai doing soil regeneration with Kauai. We also just got back from Oahu where we did 3 days of soil regeneration with them, trying to explain to them that if you're going to have compost piles that harbor coconut rhinoceros beetle, how about reduce the amount, go quality over quantity, and start using that as a compost tea, because we're finding that and this is proof, we have proof, okay, you guys. McKenna Golf Course, all sand underneath their grass. We did core samples, right? You go down, there's maybe a ½ inch of black soil that came with the sod that was rolled across that sand to create that golf course, right? And so we did a test plot with them, and over a 1 year period, we did monthly applications of just compost extract, not even fed compost teas with microbes or nothing, just compost extract. 5 inches of brown earth managed to be created in 1 year period on that sand.
No, it's like magic.
Because of microbial introduction. The only thing that can break covalent bond besides the sun is fungus. Okay?
I always knew that. Covalent bonds, only
Covalent
fungus.
bond is what holds together minerals. And if you want to feed an element to a tree, you have to break it down to make the elements available for the plants to uptake. And if you don't do that, it doesn't work. Your plant suffers. And so folks put all this chelated salt on it, and their tree looks burned or it looks yellow, and they go, what do I do? Let's put some more. And you're like, let's get some more water. Or you're like, dude, you're building this acidic junk in the soil. And if you just fed it the microbes that it needed, that tree will just be like, thank you very much, and probably probably give you more fruit than you could imagine and give you more shade and more beauty, but you have to
we
treat
need
it
to
that way.
start a microbe movement.
No, seriously, that's no
And
joke.
Dale, you have to start making microbe
We are
sculpture.
already on our way.
All my sawdust.
You can have all, yeah,
So-
that's actually a good idea. Do you take all of his sawdust and everything?
We don't yet. We can. as
You'll
long as
be
the
able
road's
to,
clean,
though,
but
right?
We can. I mean,
a good idea.
our whole point is that we are not moving a lot of material unless it's inspected. We want to make sure it's clean, you guys. And that's the biggest thing, is you don't want to spread invasive species. I was a recipient of the Malama Ika'aina Award for 2021, which is the protection Malama Ika'aina.
What's that?
And that is to protect Maui County from invasive species.
Oh, good for you, man.
One of 19 people have received this.
But there's some nasty little critters on their way here.
There's a lot.
Any more questions?
Yes.
I have a comment. You know, it's rather obvious that there are a lot of gifts that are there in, you know, responding to the Lahaina fires. And I'm one who spends a lot of time on Maui, but I also live in another part of North America. And having witnessed the fires from far away, I can say that the entire world suffered from the Lahaina fires. It was like people could feel it in their hearts everywhere. And so, you know, some of the gifts that I hear listening here tonight, the reverence for the trees, you know, comes from your gift as an artist. All the opportunities you are having to share your knowledge, which people are hungry for that kind of knowledge right now. And, you know, the banyan tree, that everybody loves. Everybody in the whole world knows about the banyan tree in Lahaina. But you know, in communities all over the world, for hundreds of thousands of years, people have always circled around these big, powerful, magical trees in their cities, in their communities. And so everybody's watching, you know, what you're doing. And so hands off to all of you for the work that you're doing and for the wonderful presentation this evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any more questions? Get back.
Thank you, Duane, for doing your tree recovery. To spread mycelium or microbials, would you use worms in a bucket and then having a compost bin to then go in and come back to the bucket, take the bucket,
Hold your microphone up.
put it down, and then be able to spread that way? Or are you just introducing microbial soil and small applications?
I'd have to talk against his neck otherwise. It looks kind of weird. Anyway, no, but see, what we're doing is we're doing batches of compost tea and inoculated teas. And so what that is we gather IMO, which is indigenous microorganisms, and those are locally grown indigenous microorganisms to these specific areas, and those are batched up through aeration, and then that liquid is brought out and applied in mass out of backpack sprayers, basically. And so the more we do that, the better off we are. We're finding that just introducing the microbes means you don't have to introduce soil. You know, we introduce food, you know, we put food down. So I have a company called Sustain has sponsored us through the duration of this project to provide us with organic fertilizer from Oregon. And it's a turkey base, it's turkey meal, turkey bone, turkey feather, turkey meal, I mean everything. So turkey blood, everything's in there, and along with their feces, right? But it's actually looks like a compost and can be used as a compost tea. So these things are out there for you guys to use, but we are looking at the liquid applications, because what we're finding is literally like the size of a grapefruit of compost will make 500 gallons of liquid that will cover 20 acres. So, and it takes like $5 to make that. Did you see what I'm saying? Do you see where I'm going, you guys? Like, seriously, do you see what I'm saying? And all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, I've had to buy these 60-pound bags of fertilizer that are like $80. You're like, what? And all I had to do was make this little stuff and spray that?
Well,
wow.
He also mentioned worm boxes.
So,
worm boxes
castings,
are unbelievable. I have two black thumbs, right? I have two black thumbs. And I had this girlfriend who said, you mean to make me a worm box? So I did. And it was amazing. I mean, just week after week, the amazing quality of the material that came out.
Worm castings
and it was like
an
instant plant. I mean, you go like this, put a seed in it,
Yeah.
So you couldn't be.
So you got to think about this. Earthworms.
Are there microbes in there with the worms?
I talk about gut biota. The gut biota within the earthworm is built to create those situations for plants. That's why the earthworms exist. That's why they're there. When you see earthworms in your system, you're successful. You don't take them out. I've been on resorts where they go, look at all this stuff. And I'm like, that's whole earthworm castings. We can't have that. Why? There's a wedding tomorrow. I don't give a shit.
There's a wedding tomorrow.
They're going to walk on it. I don't
Gail,
care.
have you ever sculpted a worm?
No, I have not.
It's coming time. It's going to be time
Something
soon.
new, an earthworm sculpture in front of Duane's house. Be like,
But yes, and to your point, yes,
with a
worm
microbe
castings,
next to it.
put worms out, spread them. But if you use the worm castings for a compost tea extract, you can go so much further with that application because you're creating millions and billions of microbes you can put out with a spray as opposed to moving soil.
Yeah, but can you put eggshells in the worm box?
That helps with their calcium development. And so there's,
And Duane, is it available? Thank you. And Duane, is it available for the common folks to get? You know, it's easy to get fertilizer over at the home improvement store, but is it easy to get this solution that doesn't cost very much?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like you're a professional that sprays it, but, you know, for us, we just, can we get it?
Where do we get the good
Yes,
stuff?
absolutely. So a couple companies actually do that here. The guy named Chrissy Monty out of Haiku makes it, as well as another individual named Johnny Clausen from Brew Hut.
And what's it called?
It's called compost tea or inoculated extract.
Inoculated extract.
Yeah.
Compost tea.
Yeah, compost tea. So, and the whole thing is these companies are available. Johnny right now is applying at my resort, Royal Lahaina. He's also applying at the Hyatt, also applying at the Westin Maui. We have him on 5-star resort properties applying this stuff because it is a protective measure for our reef system. We're also looking at these systems as we add this product called chitin. Chitin is what lobster claws are made of. It's also what the mandible, the piece that the coconut rhinoceros beetle larvae eats with. When you have this chitin in the soil, the bacteria that eats the chitin will eat the face off of the larvae in its larval state. So we've been using this as a grubworm protection for many, many years. We've been using it in the industry for years. And it boggles my mind that it's not all over the news like we should be doing a bunch of this right now as a protective measure for our little island.
All the
Maui.
news is corporate.
Yeah, basically.
And all the news protects the corporate interest.
And they want you to buy these gnarly chemicals
And that's
to
why
apply.
Akaku is here, because we don't do any of that.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah,
We don't have any algorithms. We can't afford them. Algorithms cost too much. We can't afford algorithms. We want you to come down here every third Thursday so we can figure out what to do. We want to hear from you. That's why Akaku is here. That's why our channels are here. And Kat forgot to mention, we also have a daily news program. It's called the Maui Daily Report. Chibo's the anchor. We have Patty Silva, or Patty Lee, anchors on Fridays. It's 15 minutes a day. It's on the Maui Stream app. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what you have to say. We want to hear your ideas for programs. We want to teach you how to maximize use of your phone. We want to be able to give these guys more of a voice, because I know that Duane, he's got a podcast that could go 24 hours, man.
It's therapy.
Worms,
It's actually
microbes.
therapy. I have a lot of PTSD from the fire.
I would also, we have to wrap this. Is anyone dying to ask a question? Because we have to wrap. But I would like Dale.
Got one more.
Oh, one more question, and then I'd like Dale to sort of sum things up for us.
Well, I think people are probably getting tired of the microbes, but I was making, I got a hold of a couple of big buckets and drilled holes all in them, and I got a hold of a handful of red wigglers, and I put all my kitchen scraps in there.
Yep.
And got a lot of juice came out, and so am I making
Yes.
microbes?
Yes,
And
absolutely. That's it.
And what
Take
kind
that
of
juice and spray it?
You know, I used to
Seriously.
get a 5-gallon bucket and then take big scoops of it and put it on all my plants. Was it the right amount, or way too much, or way too little?
You can't overdose goodness.
That's a good one. You can't overdose goodness. All right.
And then another question, if you want to answer it, is what would you recommend for us to replant in Lahaina on our lots? What plants?
There you go. That's a good question.
So if you guys, a lot of different things. It's really interesting. What I've found is a lot of stuff grows in that space that's not supposed to grow in that space. Mountain apples, lychees, things like that. It's amazing that they actually survive soursops, blood oranges. Typically those are more higher elevation, super wet areas. But it's about the heart of the people in that piece of land that made that tree survive and make it live. So my point being is, put back what you feel goes right and what has been there and survived and thrived, but I don't recommend any invasive species. If you have any questions, please reach out through our website. It's treecoveryhawaii.org. We're also partnered with the Maui, UH Maui campus, where we have a drop down where they have a selection of trees you can look at that are native species trees, and all those trees will be grown for you for free for your property. All you have to do is fill out the survey. Our surveys are to be able to GPS in your home with your tree list, and then we will supply those trees when you are ready, when you have water on that property, when you are on that property to plant those trees and you're available, we help. We have 5 houses already planted in Lahaina in the burn zone. We have 1 house planted inside of Kula. We have 6,000 trees right now in 23 active hubs from Kipahulu all the way to Kapalua. We have so much kukua and so much love coming to us. As he pointed, we give everything away. Right? And people call us and they say, how much are your trees? And when I tell them they're free, I can hear the tears hitting the phone. And it's amazing because it makes me tear up too, because that to be able to give somebody that minute of joy and elation when they just went through hell. You know, I did a lot of that by going up to folks and telling them, I'm so sorry that no, your tree's not going to survive, even though it was planted by D.T. Fleming and it's a very historical tree and it has 2 flavors of mango on one and it's not going to make it, and I'm really, really sorry, but I got a guy in Haiku that's going to grow those same 2 flavors on a tree, and we're going to give you that same flavored tree with 2. We're going to give you that same tree back. And they're like, wait, what? And I go, yeah, it's going to be free too. And they're like, wait, hold on. And that to me is so gratifying. That we can do that these guys are willing to take time out of their life to make these beautiful things happen, make the connections happen, to make these things fly off the shelves like they are at the price point that they're at, to raise the funding that we're raising to make this happen. We're over $600,000 brought in for our project, and this nonprofit is not even a year old. We hit 1 year in April. So we're a very young nonprofit on the scene, but we've made leaps and bounds forward because of who we've partnered with. We don't exclude anyone.
And Dale, how generous to donate 50% of that unbelievable beauty. I mean, you can't duplicate that. Even I don't think AI could duplicate it even.
Yeah,
I think it would break AI. Nope. I really do. But I mean, for you to be that generous is just incredible. We have another question back there. Yeah.
Duane, I was just going to ask you about as far as reforestation and, you know, local folks wanting to put back in. Do you have, let's say, 6 of your most favorite species for reforestation?
Well, I'll give you the most commonly requested. If that's fair. Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. So the most commonly requested trees so far have been Hayden mango. Right, because that was one of the most popular. That was brought in by D.T. Fleming, one of the very first really good agricultural fruits. The next one is Puakenikeni. That's for lei making. The next ones are plumerias. And then we have a lot of areca palm requests, which we're not really happy about. We're not really fans of areca palms, like, to be honest. We'd rather give lolu. So we're actually purchasing a lot of endangered lolu palms right now. Now, unfortunately, they're not Maui DNA. They're from the Big Island, because we can't get Maui DNA on big scale. But we are going to be bringing in Hawaiian lolu. We're not going to be bringing in non-native lolu palms. We want real Hawaiian blood there. We are also getting a lot of kauaia requests, alahee requests, as well as maya and banana and coconuts. Those are, and ulu. Yeah, can't forget the ulu. Lots of ulu requests. We've partnered with a few different groups that are supplying ulu for us. We have 150 available right now at Maui Nui Botanical Gardens, and those are Ma'oli Hawaiian DNA. Those came from Noah Lincoln and his team off of the the Big Island. We've also have access to the cuttings from Puloa, which is a 350-year-old tree that was in the video. We have 40 of those that will be going back. We just have to select where those are going to go. More than likely the Moku'ula project, because Moku'ula is coming back. We are going to be part of that reestablishment of Moku'ula. So it's very important that we look at those.
That's also very inspiring.
Last but not least, tell them about the air cuts and the banyans.
Okay, so banyan tree. We were very nervous that the banyan tree could die. So as a preventative measure, just in case it did die, we went and extracted cuttings called air layers. The tree was actually so vigorously alive that within 3 weeks, we extracted these out of the tree. It takes usually 3 months for a tree to produce roots of that volume. And in 3 weeks, this tree had produced that much root system. And we attribute that to the microbial life that we introduced, over 500 gallons of microbes into that system over 6 months. That's what did it. So we look at that as a benefit. The air layers have now been grown in various places at resorts, of all things, because the guests want to see them. The tourists are who want to see this tree. It is a global icon. Like you had mentioned, the people around the world, that we've got a lot of benefits from. People around the world have helped us out because of that tree. Mm-hmm. And so we brought that tree to the people. We have it in lobby ponds inside of the resorts. And now you can go visit a living specimen of the Lahaina banyan tree. And when it comes time to plant those back into that park, the general managers of those host hotels will help plant those trees as a legacy. We are creating a space to where everybody gets to be a participant of this legacy of Lahaina. It's not just me, it's not just us. It's everybody gets to play a part. Everybody can come help us pot up trees and put their mana into these trees for the future.
You know what? You really are a spark man. Spark things for people to do that are good.
Mm-hmm. I try.
You know, you're fantastic. Let me give this guy a hand. I love this. Positivity, growth, evolution. Dale, you have the last word.
Well, thank you so much for having us here so we can share this with the community and get the community involved in this project. It's very worthy. There are studies that have been done and proven that having trees in your community has a much more healthy community. And so let's all go plant some trees.
I never thought that I would see something as lovely as a tree. And with that, thank you very much for coming. Please pay attention to Akaku. Help us if you can. We're always in trouble. Someone's always trying to take us over or shut us down, whatever. But we're still here, and we have resilience, Roger, right? And now we're going to add some microbes, right? And we have Dale on our side, so we can't possibly fail. So thanks so much for coming. Very nice to see you, and hope to see you again.
Aloha.
And you're welcome to hang out.